Hello, good evening to you. Welcome to Business Focus. Tonight, in less than 48 hours, the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, is expected to tell the whole country, and as a matter of fact, the whole world, because investors are very keen about the development in this country, as to how the fiscal plan of government will be for the ensuing year 2018, and also a review of the ending fiscal year of 2017. This is going to be the second budget of the NPP government. A number of indicators have been given to us already, some 25% reduction on tariffs for the industry. We're also looking at employment and also issues related to agriculture. Government has given some indicators, and as a matter of fact, there's been lots of expectations greeting this particular budget. Tonight, what we're going to be doing is a pre-analysis of the various aspects of the budget as it relates to what. But the minority in Parliament has rendered a damning verdict of the management of this particular economy in the 11 months of the Akufo-Addo-led government. We'll be finding out if it is a fair verdict by the minority NDC in Parliament, or it is a tainted verdict of the management of the economy. You want to join us tonight here on Business Focus. My name is Alfred Okansi. We're going to go for a brief of the various business stories that made the headlines throughout the week. And when we're back, we'll get into the studios and engage our guests who are already seated to do some analysis with us. All right, so those were some summaries of some stories that made the headlines in the business front. Remember, you are a part of the discussion on Business Focus this evening, because the economy is all about you, and the definition of how well the economy is doing obviously is your pocket. So just let us know what you feel about what we're going to be discussing this evening. Kojo Poko is an energy expert. He joins me in studio. Also, Edo Suksa Korea is an economist with the University of Ghana, also with Institute of Fiscal Studies, IFS, and then also Mr. Ben Amoa Ajay is an analyst with First Bank. They're all with us here in studio. Gentlemen, good evening to you. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're doing well. Hopefully the economy would, in fact, the budget will make us smile a little more in the next 48 hours, all other things being equal. But then, before we get into the discussion, I've been talking about expectations ahead of the 2018 budget expected to be presented by the Finance Minister. The Association of Ghana Industries looks forward to a budget that will see government sustain the economic stability industries are experiencing at the moment. They ever anticipate an industrial plan that will outline how government intends to carry out some of the projects. It's a slide. Let's hear from the AGI.
We'd like to see in the budget mechanisms, strategies, and arrangements being made to ensure that the stability we've achieved this year is actually going to be sustained in 2018. And then also the policy rate coming down, its effects on interest rate. Are we going to see reduction in the interest rate as predicted? So that is, and what is it going to take for that to happen? So we'd like to see that as well. And then again, in the 2018, government has a focus on industrialization, which we commend and we are indeed supporting. And that's how come they have initiatives such as the One District, One Factory, stimulus package, industrial enclave development, and all that. So very beautiful plans for industrial development. We want to see it reflected in the budget. In the budget, I'm sure there should be a provision for supporting this initiative to happen, both at the local level and then at the national level, at the regional level as well. So in the budget, we'll be looking forward to seeing a budget line for supporting these initiatives regarding industry. And then when the budget is made, we'd like to see the releases of the funds that has been earmarked to support One District, One Factory, stimulus package, and all that. So that is another expectation we have.
Well, so that's the Association of Ghana Industries. They're telling us exactly what the expectations are. And the president speaking to them, we're going to get into the president's speech very shortly over the weekend, indicated that the first quarter of 2017 recorded an impressive growth rate of 11.5% when it comes to industry's growth, the highest sectoral growth in the economy, and industry is going to be giving all the assistance that is needed. Now, let me start off with you, Mr. Sarkodie. Now, you hear the AGI talk about the fact that they're expecting interest rates to go down. And what we witnessed in 2017, all the major indicators or influences of interest rates have witnessed a downward trend or a reduction, policy rate, inflation, but interest rates haven't really seen what I'll call a correspondent reduction, even though there's been some percentage points reduction in it. Are you going to say that the AGI's expectation is going to be met with the trends analysis?
We hope so. We hope that their expectations be met. You see, government wants to embark on industrialization, and government doesn't have enough fiscal space. Therefore, they have to partner with the private sector, and the private sector would need funds from the banks. But if your interest rate is so high, then they may not be able to borrow as much as they want. The linkage between the policy rate and the interest rate has always been a problem. The Bank of Ghana usually wants to reduce the policy rate with the idea that the interest rate will follow suit. Right. But that's what we see. It tells us that the equations of these banks for determining the interest rate has something more to do with whatever they have, the variable they have, more than the policy rate. One of them could be their profit margin, and the other could be the non-performing loans. Because if I'm a bank and I have so much non-performing loans, government has borrowed so much from me, he hasn't paid, then of course you don't expect my interest rate to come down. The profit margin, and it could be other variables that are not seen by those of us in the public. Of course, like you said, we expect
increase, a continuous increase in operational costs, which some of which have questioned exactly. Some of the modules that the banks run in this country.
Exactly. Remember that the doing business ranking, Ghana's doing business ranking has gone down, and it shows that doing business in Ghana hasn't improved that much. So there are a number of factors that these banks consider, other than the policy rate and the treasury bill that you mentioned. The cost of running their banks is key to them. And of course, they are not charity organizations. They want to make profit, so they will by all means increase their interest rate. However, I think that It is a big problem in the country. Interest rate, an average of maybe 32 to 35%. If you borrow 100 cedis, you are paying 32 cedis more at the end of the year. It's very high. Other countries are charging 1.9 and 2%.
I mean, our interest cost is about 7%.
Yes,
right?
Our interest rate is very, very high, and that is key. It's something that the AGI has been very much concerned about. And I think that if we want to embark on industrialization, given the fact that government doesn't have enough fiscal space and therefore want to partner the private sector, then there's every need to make sure that the private sector partners government well by reducing the interest rate.
Mr. J, would it be realistic to have the AGI expect a reduction in interest rates going into the fiscal year 2018?
It would be. I think the current dichotomy we have seen between the policy rates and the interest rates are fairly reasonable for a number of factors. One of them being what Mr. Sarkodie has said, the very high NPLs on the bank's books. So if they are having to write off a lot of their loans, you don't really expect them to reduce interest rates for everybody else. Then it would be like we are subsidizing or... So currently what they are doing is the rest of the borrowers who are actually paying back their loans are subsidizing all the others who are refusing to pay back or cannot pay back. That's one of the problems. Another one being that if banks have taken funds at a very high interest rate in the past, and let's say they have locked them in at, say, 1 year, 18 months, or even 2 years, you would expect them to wait for those funds to mature. And when they're able to source funds at a cheaper rate, then transfer those cheaper rates on to customers or to lenders or to borrowers, sorry. And that is what we expect going forward. Now, the decline in interest rates have actually been since November last year. So it's been almost 12 months now. Sure. And so going forward, we should see that drop. Although I would also have to admit the fact that in the past, even when conditions have been very ripe, interest rates have also not really fallen that much, at least not below 16, 17%. And so even though, yes, the AGI would be right to expect a decline in the interest rates or in the lending rates, they shouldn't really expect it to go much beyond that. The reason being that the current model that the banks use include a cost of their operations, as well as their own expected profit margins. Now, if you're expecting a bank to run a business and to make profits, and you're expecting them to include the expected profits in the formula for determining lending rates, you can't expect lending rates to really fall as much as the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana would like it to.
And you see, so and then the question is, what exactly can the government do, or can the Bank of Ghana do, beyond just doing what is being done? Because see, you have all the players in the policy space not being on the same tangent, because if government is going out of the short-term bonds market, borrowing from the long-term bonds market to free up the short-term market so that private sector can borrow, as against the previous case where we saw private sector being crowded out of the short-term bonds market because government was borrowing from there, but then you don't have the banks responding in the same manner the government intends to. What can government do? Because in the end, they want industries to grow. But you can't get that if people are borrowing from such humongous high rates.
So the example, or the procedure for doing this has been given time and time again in several economies, particularly in Southeast Asia and in Latin America. Now, in any of those economies where interest rates continuously remained high for a long period of time, the only, should I say, silver bullet that dealt with the issue was bringing more people into the banking sector, or what we call financial inclusion. Now, what happens is that when there's so much money in the banking space that they don't know what to do with it, and T-bill rates are so low that they can't make profits on buying government treasuries, what happens? They are forced to lend. And it is that competition between the banks that helps to drive interest rates lower. And this is what has happened in every part of the economy. I mean, in Southeast Asia, I'm talking of the Malaysias and the South Koreas and the Thailands, and in Latin America as well. This has always been the situation, and this is always what has led to a continuous drop. You see, what we have in Ghana is that every once in a while when the economy improves, the interest rates go down small. Sure. They don't really go down where we want it to. But then the moment things start getting worse a little, it just shoots up again. If we want to maintain interest rates at a low, if we want to bring them down and keep them at that level, we need to bring more people into the financial sector. Make sure the banks have so much cash on their books that they don't have any other option than to lend out the money in order to make profits.
Absolutely.
And in doing so, bring interest rates down. The competition between the banks helps to bring down the interest rates for borrowers. I
see. Now, Kojo, I'm going to come to you, but I wanted to find out, Ms. Sarkodie, from the analysis, we've seen inflation take a downward trend. There was just a slight increase in the previous month. But from your own projections, is it going to continue that way? Because it's one of the major influences of the policy rate.
Yes, we look at the determinants of inflation. Food inflation has been okay; it's been going down. Exchange rate has been stable. Utility prices have not gone up that much. The petroleum prices, because of deregulation, government no longer changes the petroleum prices, so they are changed as and when they are changed on the international market. So, and the treasury bill rate has also been going down, the policy rate is going down. So we expect inflation. In fact, at the beginning of the year, I predicted that we could get single digit. However, because we are currently at 11.6, we may do better than the estimated rate for the year was 11.2 in the budget, in the 2017 budget, and currently we are at 11.6. So it's very likely that we may get below 11.2, maybe 10%, if not even single digit, we could get to 10%. So I'm highly optimistic that the inflation rate will continue to decline because of the contributory factors, which have also been quite stable and others are declining.
Are you also going to go on the same tangent about the optimism that the industry has, especially when the 2018 budget has a three-pronged approach: industrialization, agriculture, and a bit of education as well?
Well, I want to add a bit to what my brother said. He said something about, for you to now, other ways to get interest rate down is to get a lot more people in that space, mean more banks. In Ghana, we are trying to discourage more banks, but trying to increase capital. Right now, we have about 35 banks which are not really worth the money, okay? So over 35 banks not worth the money. We really wish that the central bank, the exercise that it has gone on to increase capital, they stick to that. Not only do they stick to that, but they make it to peg at the dollar. You see, we've had this exercise before.
Absolutely.
When in 2007, it came out that we should do 60 million Ghana cedis. The 60 million Ghana cedis at that time, the dollar to the cedi was almost 1-to-1. So at that time, the thinking was $60 million to be the base capital for all the banks.
Right.
Because we didn't peg it at the dollar. By the time people now meet that 60 million Ghana cedis, it was $50 million. No longer $60 million that we wanted it to be. So now that the thinking is 400 million Ghana cedis, the thinking is $100 million. So the central bank should peg the base capital of these banks at the dollar. Not necessarily that they should have that dollar, but if you are saying that 400 million now, on year, when you are being assessed and the cedi is depreciating, we are now pegging it so that they now shore up their base. If we have 20 banks able to capitalize to 400 million, we will have 8 billion Ghana cedis sitting in the banks. So like my brother said, they have money. What would they have to do? They have to go out and now force us to take the money. And the only way you now get the banks to do that is to compete against each other on the interest. That is the only way that AGI can improve or industries can improve.
So we wouldn't have government being able to put up any, or the Bank of Ghana putting up, not a regulation, because I've had people
government
ask
has nothing to do with that space.
You cannot, it's a free market.
It's unfortunate. Government, there's nothing government can do in that space. Look, in business, what can government do? I mean, there's talk of this president saying that there's going to be a reduction in electricity prices.
I'm going to get there. In fact, that is going to be my next, because industry needs electricity.
You ask yourself, what can they do? And I mean, can the government read the budget and reduce interest rate? No, it cannot. Can government read the budget and reduce fuel prices? It can only reduce taxes.
So market forces will have to determine that?
It has to be, because you see, Ghana, we have to start acknowledging the fact that we're a capitalist country. We are not a socialist country or a communist country where government now mandates and dictates everything. Towards budget, everybody expects a lot of things, and the politicians don't help. They don't help by making some of these utterances as if they have the power. Look, two things that I think politicians should stay out of: the price of petroleum products. Politicians can't do anything about it. The price of electricity. Politicians can't do anything about it. It's about time they stay out of that space.
So you are not one person who is convinced about this particular promise by government, but some 25% reduction in tariff in electricity for industry. And I'm going to take that right now, because President Akufo-Addo is saying that government will review electricity tariffs. He did not put any figure to it. The Vice President gave an indication of 25% reduction in tariffs. Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta readies himself to give government fiscal policy for 2018. Let's take a listen to President Akufo-Addo speaking to the Association of Ghana Industries.
Government is also designing innovative, structured solutions to remove one of the main constraints to rapid industrial growth. That is access to medium and long-term finance for our industrial enterprises. Very soon, the solutions for addressing this problem will be unveiled. Like myself, I'm glad that businesses are no longer burdened by the erratic power supply that wrecked our nation in recent years. Dumsor, thank God, appears now to be a thing of an unlamented past. Government is moving to set in motion the process for the review of electricity tariffs. And in the budget to be read by the brilliant Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, on Wednesday, 15th November, I'm sure you will hear some good news in this regard. Industry is going to be given all the assistance we can muster.
So that's President Akufo-Addo speaking there at the AGI 6th AGI Ghana Industry and Quality Awards. He did not put any figure to it in terms of the margin of reduction, but according to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, he's quoted here at the Global Business Forum on Africa in Dubai, said that we will actually be seeing some significant reduction in the cost of electricity for industrial production next year in Ghana, and that can be as much as 25%, and that should be a major catalyst for industrial production, and that's one of the areas that the 2018 budget is going to be looking at. And you're saying that this is not the way to go for government.
You know what? Unless the government is going to conjure money or do what some people call voodoo economics, then I can believe this is possible.
You don't believe this is possible?
No, it's not that I don't believe it's possible. It can be done, but at what cost? Government has a wide range of options to do things. But let me take you through what goes into ECG charging you what you pay. There are 3 columns. There is the energy charge, there is the service charge, there is the lightning, street lightning, and there is the national levy, which is the ASLA, which we've all gone to know, which is the electricity levy. In the last budget, they've reduced quite a number significant of those columns.
Sure.
What they cannot touch is the energy charge, which is what the IPPs, they generate and they sell to ECG. Now, government cannot read a budget to reduce that. Sure. Government can read a budget to reduce the taxes, which is on the electricity. They went to the bond market to try and raise money for the $1.2 billion debt that is there. So I would think that the ASLA is what they have promised to the bondholder, because the only way they can pay back the bond money that they've taken is that they have to have a revenue stream that will pay off the bond in 6 years. Now, unfortunately, the bond money or the debt in the energy sector, as of January, we were told is 1.2 billion. Government has not been paying its debt since January till now. So I want to put that bill close to 2 billion. Obviously, because it has ballooned in the last 11 months.
$2 billion?
Yes, because you know what? Let me give you a simple calculation. The last time we had energy increases in electricity prices was January 1st, 2016. True. During His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Prices were 34, let me use the 34 energy charge. The 34 Peswest energy charge at 3.7 was 9 cents per kilowatt hour, which everybody consumes. Forward it to today, dollar at 4.42 is 7 cents. So as me and you are sitting here, government is subsidizing every kilowatt hour in this country by 2 cents. By 2 cents. Every kilowatt hour per minute, government is subsidizing that electricity. So that energy debt is increasing. So if you go and raise 4.45 million Ghana cedis, right, or billion, which is about $1 billion, you still have another $800 million that is still debt there. So you see what? Unless they don't, and I mean, who are we to say that they don't know the maths? Come on, we all had the lectures from His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, so they do know the maths. So what are they trying to tell us? That all of a sudden they have forgotten the lectures they told us?
But the mathematics must match with reality.
Yes, your revenue and your expenditure must correlate. And my 2 brothers here will tell you, the revenue, unless they want to add to the national debt and forget about all the things they told us. But I believe in Dr. Bawumia, and I believe in the things he says. The revenue in this budget, in that particular area. That's not add up. How are you going to reduce? Already, the methodology which they agreed on for the concession to be come in 2019, if you are to use that methodology today, we're supposed to have more than 25% increase. So what are we talking about?
Mr. Kode, this clearly brings up the question about we getting very real, I mean, with analysis, because if what Kojo is saying is anything to go by, it raises a lot of concern, especially industry will be glad if we're talking about 25% reduction, because, for example, if you look at Cote d'Ivoire, 17 cents, 9 cents in Cote d'Ivoire, 17 cents in Benin, 16 cents in Togo, 17 cents in Nigeria. Because, so when you do the analysis, we are obviously on the high side. But is this reality? Is this something that is achievable? Because we've had a number of these budget projections not actually being achieved.
Well, I am very surprised that government is promising this, given the fact that government doesn't have enough fiscal space. You've come to meet a public debt of 122, now it's been increased to 140 billion cedis, and then your revenue target, you've not met it. Your revenue for the first half of 2017, your revenue fell by 13.9%, and I don't know how they're going to raise revenue to subsidize this. Well, obviously, like our brother said, there are some items that cannot be touched. So if you want to touch it, then you have to subsidize. You have to pay the producers so that they can sell to the consumers at a reduced price. The whole idea for government to do this, if they are able to do it, is so I'm sure is to make doing business less expensive in the country, given the fact that they want to embark on industrialization. So, of course, industrialization cannot also go without infrastructure. And electricity is one of the key components of infrastructure. So, I'm sure that is their agenda. As to whether they'll be able to achieve it or not, it's up to them. They have to raise enough revenue.
Yeah, but from your own reading analysis of the situation, is this achievable? Because you see, in the end, people, and I keep saying that people are losing the kind of interest in budgets because it's just become figures and words, and doesn't really translate much into what
I believe that once they've said it and it's coming from the high office, they would find a way and try as much as possible to implement it. I mean, there were a number of taxes which were removed and abolished in this year's budget.
But at what cost would it be?
Well, we all saw that the revenue projection has been cut short by 13.9% from basically from the tax revenue. So it obviously has hurt government. So with this one, I believe that no matter what, they will subsidize and reduce it to the barest minimum. And remember that they've been talking about moving from taxation to production. When we are able to embark this and increase production, you know, they believe that the producers, the manufacturers will be able to produce more, earn more, and then come back to pay the tariffs. So let's hope that they're able to do it at a subsidized rate. And I was also following the figures that you were mentioning. Some of the figures you've mentioned are way below what we pay in Ghana. It means that Ghana's own is very expensive. And there's every reason for them to think that they should reduce the tariffs to some level so that we can embark on production.
2.6 cents per kilowatt hour, right?
Yes.
Well, no, I don't know who pays that. I don't know where that figure came from. Nobody pays 32 cents in Ghana.
You think it's higher?
It's much higher. It's 97. If you look at the reckoner, you go to Ghana Electricity website, it's 97 pesos. 97 pesos divided by 4.2 is nowhere near that. So I don't know where they got the 32 pesos from. Industry pay, and that is even the industry that does not go to become a bulk customer. If you become a bulk customer, you can actually register with Energy Commission, go to ECG, and now negotiate your own rate. So heavy industries like the Casaprecons and the mining companies and all that are all bulk customers. And the steel companies, they all negotiate their own. It's about 10 pesos cheaper than what they normally pay, and it's locked in for a year. So I don't know where the 32 pesos is coming from. Nobody pays 32 pesos in Ghana.
How much would we have to give up to actually achieve this 25% power tariff cut?
Well, you see, like my brother said, there is a thinking around the room in the ministries that there's a lot of, let me give you the background. During the Doomsaw, a lot of companies went off the grid and do not now use the grid at all. They generate their own electricity. Doomsaw is over. There's a lot of electricity available, but the companies have not come back to the grid because they're saying electricity is expensive. Government has a thinking that if you reduce the tariffs for industry, it will bring people back onto the grid, make them use more, then you now get the revenue which you are not getting. But it's hypothesis. It's hypothesis. It doesn't necessarily translate. So I don't know. My problem is I don't know what the budget is going to say. So I want to do a more wait and see approach. But like I said, it will be difficult to see how the finance minister is going to do that, to legislate to reduce electricity tariffs.
Mr. J, I'm bringing you on this. I mean, let's on this particular issue.
I think if you're looking at it in terms of industry, there are two things we need to remember here. One of the key, should I say, lobbying points for the Association of Ghana Industries has always been the fact that they are kind of subsidizing the individual consumers. So they've always attempted to bring this similarities between what consumers or normal consumers like you and I pay and what they would like to pay. To some extent, this 25% will bring them a little more closer to what everybody else is paying, which is why they seem excited about this. This is fairly in line with what they've been lobbying governments for over the last 12 or 14 years. I would think. The second option is that for all those countries that you mentioned, you would like to you would have to understand the fact that their mix of power production or power generation is different from ours. Ours have become increasingly expensive since 2011, 2012 because we've set up more and more of these thermal plants, while Akosombo and Biu are producing less and less for us. And so it has become increasingly expensive for even VRA and even the IPPs to produce power, as it were like 6 or 7 years ago. And so it has become increasingly expensive, which is what beggars the question why anybody would want to interfere in those prices and actually bring them down. Again, like Mr. Sarkodie said, they must have some very interesting ideas about this. And I suspect, yes, it's to drive industrialization, it's to drive growth. You know, instead of using taxation, they are trying to produce more power for more people, hoping that manufacturing would go ahead. You see, but the key issue is it enough? Is it enough? Is this 25% cut, which might not even be up to 25% in any case, is it enough to drive the kind of industrialization and production that we need? Because if it isn't, it's going to be a cost to the government with a less than proportionate benefit.
The focus on revenue generation, but how about revenue leakage? That's going to be my final. How do we block the leakages in revenue in 30 seconds to run through?
There's a lot of leakages in the system, as you rightly said. I think that we must strengthen our laws, make sure that the laws are enforced in the country. Those who don't pay, those who evade, those who avoid must be brought back to pay. And then those who collect, say, 100 cedis and account for 80 cedis must be brought to book, must be punished, and to serve as a deterrent to those who are even thinking of doing that. So leakages in the system is a very serious matter and must be dealt with. The law must work.
The law must work.
Well, I believe in that. I am a fan of punishment. I think people should be jailed. The more people that are jailed for evading of taxes, the more people that would now pay and will not evade. You know, if we don't do that, the only thing that we understand as Ghanaians is punishment. I mean, you don't punish, everybody thinks that everybody can go to free. You are free to tell me anybody in the last 20 years that's in jail or been to jail for tax evasion.
Mr. J.
In the US, the tax authorities are some of the most feared people in the country. They have jailed some of the biggest politicians and celebrities you can ever imagine. There you go. That is the way to solve the problem.
That's the only way.
That's the only way.
That's the only way to solve the problem.
Obviously, Neymar can go to prison or serve community.
Anybody at all.
Absolutely.
They got anybody on that.
Nobody is above the tax law.
Even Gambino fell on the tax law.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Gentlemen, I'm grateful. Thank you so much. And this is just a build-up to the budget in less than 48 hours. As I said, the finance minister doesn't catch a cold, or probably any of his deputies don't fall sick. Wednesday, 11 a.m., all other things being equal, we should hear from him. And stay with us here on TV3. We're going to be doing a lot of build-up ahead of that particular presentation. Do also Sarkodie, economist in the University of Ghana, and also the Institute of Fiscal Studies. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Benam YJ, analyst for First Bank. Ben, I'm grateful. And also Mr. Kojopoku Sarkodie. Kojopoku is an energy expert joining us this evening. I'll be back and we're getting to our mover segment for today. Tuesday.
Gone are the days when you'd have to walk from Adenta housing down to Adenta barrier to get your favorite wache, and also board a taxi from your office to Osu to buy your favorite beans. Of course, you still go to Antifili to buy banku, but now with a click of a button, you can order for food, make your payments, and get your food delivered right at your doorstep. Good evening, and thanks for staying with us on Business Focus. This is the Mover segment, and our mover for the week, we're looking at getting your food via a mobile app and getting it also with a delivery service. I'm talking about the CEO of Pizzeria, Desiree Ameleke, joining us this evening as our mover of the week. Good evening, and thank you for your time here on Business Focus. Now, Desiree here has a banking background. He did finance in school, and he's been at the bank for 8 years. All of a sudden, he just decided to quit. Why would you quit banking?
I have passion for business, and when I was growing up, I wanted to be a businessman, and I wanted to be an IT business person. So my dad wanted me to do business course in school, whilst I wanted to do a computer-related course. So we fought about it. He eventually won, and he asked me to do a business-related course. I had the opportunity to work in a bank, and whilst I was working, I was gathering capital to do my own thing after a period. That's how it all started.
Lots and lots of things you could do with whatever business you wanted to start. Why did you decide to do food? Is it because you like food? I don't think so.
I saw an opportunity with regards to blending technology with food. So this is what happened. I used to work in Tema, and I lived in Accra. So often when I close from work, I order food to pick up somewhere in Accra. Usually when you get to the restaurants, they tell you your food is not ready. They don't know of your order. Sometimes you leave the restaurant frustrated without getting your food.
So you've had experience?
Yes, experience. Okay. So then it dawned on me that no, I can take this opportunity and do something. So I was like, why can't I develop an online system where you would get a list of restaurants on it, get a team at the back to follow up on your order for you. The idea came up.
Okay. Now, talking about the idea and the name Pizzeria, there's a pizza there somewhere. When I saw it at first, I thought, oh, I was going to see a gentleman who prepares pizza for delivery, but it looks like you do more than that.
The idea started with a platform for pizza restaurants, because I like pizza as at the time. I like to eat pizza.
Okay, so that's how come you got it?
Yeah.
Right.
So then we started with some pizza restaurants. Then as the business grew, we realized customers wanted a variety of foods. So that's how we had to, broaden our base and get other foods on our platform. It's an application
on Google Play Store. So I download, and then what next?
Okay, so if you download the application on Play Store, you'll be asked to register with your personal details. When you're done with that, list of restaurants nearby would pop up on your screen. So you would select your preferred restaurant, now select your preferred menu, then you can add your preferred food item to cart. When you add the food item, you will be asked either you want delivery or pickup. So whichever option that you want, you click. So paying online, you can pay with your mobile money, with your Visa card, with your MasterCard, etc.
Does it mean that it works with proximity? If you are in Adenta, you get restaurants in Adenta. If you are in Accra, is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, that's what it means.
So are you like in all the 10 regions in Ghana? Because it's an app, so it should be everywhere.
Yeah, we have plans to roll out to all the other regions, but now we are in Accra and Tema.
Now let's look at your startup capital, having a mobile app. Who developed the software? Did you do it yourself? How did you get it? And how much did you start with?
Okay, I started with a capital of 50,000 Ghana cedis.
50,000? You are rich. you were working. Okay, you were working.
So like I said, I was working. I worked for a period. So within that period, I had to save money because I had a plan. So every month I saved, and I put my money in investment to yield a bit of interest for me. So in terms of development, I got a team, fresh graduates from school, who had computer background, computer science background. So we came together as a team to develop the app and our website as well.
So if you just tuned in, you're watching Business Focus, and this is the Mover segment. And tonight we're celebrating Desiree Ameleke, who is the CEO of Pizzeria. He doesn't just do pizza deliveries, but he delivers any food or drink you are interested in, depending on where you find yourself. Well, thanks for staying with us once again. Now, I was talking about how it started. We've looked at how it started, the areas you've covered so far. Let's look at the employment base. How many people are you working with now, and what exactly are you doing with these people you have? Because I know it's an app. So,
So the beginning was very funny. We were 3 of us started the business, and now I can say we have close to about 50 employees who are working for us. So we have several divisions. We have those who are working in our content department. We have the technical guys, those who are behind the technology. We also have our customer engagement team. We have our operation people. Then we have our delivery guys also on the field, all over the city, Accra and Tema, who are working for us.
Now, when it comes to issues of food, one would ask about food safety. Even though you are a middleman for these businesses, what checks have you done to make sure that these people you're dealing with have their papers in terms of verifications and their licenses and documents in place? Because you should know who you're working with. In case of any legal matters, what checks have you done so far?
Okay, so the idea was to get the top brands in the city on our platform. And most of these brands, when you go to their outlets, they have these certificates hanging there from the various authorities. So those are the things we normally look at before signing them up.
As Nanekia Mensa Brampa there with the Mover segment, and we celebrate young entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things and also having a social impact. That's really the underlying factor. But I want to thank you very much for staying with us here on Business Focus. On behalf of the rest of the team, we're grateful. And remember, we're going to be doing a lot of build up to the budget presentation on Wednesday. Thank you. My name is Alfred Kansi. Good evening.